On February 7, 2022, before the Russians crossed the Ukrainian border, President Biden was asked what would happen if they hypothetically did. His answer would change history forever.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Norsdtream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
8 months following these comments, both Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 were taken out by mysterious explosions, resulting in not only an environmental disaster but an economic one as well. With this act of aggression, a large majority of Russian gas flowing to Europe had been cut off permanently. Nobody knows by who, with both sides pointing fingers at one another, but outside of the blame game, something more important is happening. This monumental event has forever changed the world, and in today's video we explore the severe consequences that will ripple out from the Baltic Sea as waves of panic crash into banks, economies, and governments around the world. To truly understand the severity of this situation, you have to understand a bit of history. Now, without making this too long, here's the simple breakdown. You see, following World War II, the European economy thrived, enjoying a golden era created on a bedrock that was built upon cheap Russian gas. Even in the 1970s, when the Iron Curtain was up and the West and the East had strained diplomatic relations, the gas always flowed. The USSR, with its massive oil and gas fields, remained a willing and reliable provider of cheap natural gas that was used to build up a massive web of companies and economies, with Germany at the forefront. Germany and Russia enjoyed this thriving energy partnership, so much so that they eventually decided that a new pipeline should be built, one that went directly from Russia to Germany without crossing any other sovereign nations. A direct line that would make gas even cheaper and more accessible. This was the Nord Stream 1, and following its completion in 2011, this single pipeline supplied the European Union with 35% of all the gas they imported from Russia. It was the single biggest artery feeding what is essentially the entire European industrial economy. Now, with the success of the direct line, a new pipeline was planned called the Nord Stream 2. Many in the West criticized this new project as it would make Germany even more reliant on Russia, but nonetheless the project was built out at a cost of $10 billion, with construction taking over 4 years. Now, while this new pipeline had no flows or real gas running through it, it was months away from being operational. So in summary, these pipelines were critically important in providing Europe with cheap gas that it could then use to grow and maintain its once thriving economy. Without the Nord Streams, the Europeans find themselves with a massive problem. You can see the obvious from this graph, which shows the overall European gas supply, or where Europe gets its gas from. As you can tell, the orange was Nord Stream 1, and it made up a large portion of this pie. This is permanently gone now, and with other sources including the Ukrainian supply dwindling down to zero, the Europeans now have a crisis. Sure, this winter they may have avoided disaster by saving up the gas that was flowing earlier this year, but going forward, Europe is going to have a very tough time surviving winters and maintaining any sort of modern economy. Unlike other commodities, natural gas is very hard to transport outside of pipelines. Alternatives like LNG are much more expensive and require billions of dollars in infrastructure to be built out. So with this new reality in place, you can see certain markets are reacting. It's clear that in Europe, natural gas prices are correlated with electricity prices, and with a complete collapse in natural gas supply, we can expect these elevated prices to continue and possibly even get worse. Other countries like Great Britain have already announced that blackouts are very possible this winter. These modern economic superstates are having trouble keeping on the lights, and on the economic side, many of their businesses that ran on margins made possible by cheap Russian gas are now having to face the reality of losing money quarter after quarter due to elevated input costs. So what does all of this mean, and why does it matter? The governments will figure it out, right? Well, things have been escalating fast, and at the forefront of this underreported super crisis, you have the nucleus of a country's health, its very own currency. Now, how energy and currency are related is a topic that requires its very own video, but essentially, as Doomberg once put it, a currency is an energy derivative. What he means by this is that without natural gas or oil, your country can't produce anything, and therefore it can't pay for anything, and as a result, its currency will weaken when compared to others. You're seeing this play out right now with the British pound and other major currencies. Take, for example, the euro, which has lost 20% of its value in comparison to the dollar in less than 18 months. The British pound being no different. Now compare this to countries with a secured energy supply and you can see why it matters and why wars are fought over oil. Nobody likes to talk about it, but the Russian ruble has gained 40% over the euro since 2021. The Saudi rial has gained over 25% in that same time frame. Countries without a secured supply are suffering, and these currency collapses are a major issue that can lead to things like this, a situation where several British pension funds nearly collapsed overnight and were only saved because of government intervention. As we move forward through this crisis, you can expect more and more things like this, with currencies beginning to behave like meme stocks, and because energy is the basis for nearly all of finance, you can expect all kinds of second, third, and fourth order effects. Doomberg is an energy expert that runs this infamous Substack and the popular Twitter account. You can take a listen to him explain why Russian energy is simply necessary for the world economy to function properly. Take a listen to this recent podcast clip.
Right. So at the end of the day, it's your belief that in order for the market to be adequately supplied, you kind of need some of that Russian natural gas.
The world cannot live without Putin's energy, period. And we should not want them to, because if all of Putin's energy, let's just get the exception that proves the rule out on the table here. If we bombed every oil well and embargoed every port and no LNG, no natural gas from pipelines and no oil from Russia found its way outside of Russia's borders, the world economy would collapse. Hundreds of millions, if not billions, would starve. And we would enter into a depressionary spiral that would make the 30s look gentle. It's just a fact. And so this is an axiom. And when you're designing your sanctions policy, you should consider not only the first order, but the second and third and fourth order effects of what you're doing. And we've been very loud from the beginning. People accuse us of being, quote, unpatriotic for pointing this out. In fact, we argue it's as patriotic as you can be. This is not going to work. Here's a plan that would. Follow our plan and we will achieve our geopolitical objectives. Unfortunately, we've gone in the opposite direction, talking about price caps and if somebody blew up these pipelines, I'm sure we'll talk about Norsdtream 1 and Norsdtream 2. This is catastrophic for Germany in particular. This is a real big escalation. And so, we think we've been wrong-headed on this from the beginning, and we've been consistent in our view. You can only win a revenue war in the commodity world by swamping with production.
So while it may be considered unpatriotic to say, it's extremely dangerous to take all Russian oil off the market. The unfortunate truth is that energy is life, and without access to reliable cheap gas, Europe and its entire economy will suffer in the near term, struggling with currency problems and a collapse in industry, and these issues will spread not only to the region, but to the overall global economy, including our markets here in the United States. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video.